computer. Okay, we are now recording.
Hi.
Hello.
So we're Neptune, and we're going to be discussing our 2009 LP, which is releasing this week, Mother of Millions. So we're going to just kind of go through track by track. Dan is releasing a cassette on his label, Wrong Whole Archival Bureau, and it'll be available digitally. So we just wanted to go through maybe track for track and just, talk about kind of what's behind the record, why it took so long. So just in general, what do you guys think of when you think of
First of all,
11 years ago?
let's note that it's January 17th, 2021. So it's I guess we're a little shy of 12 years for releasing this album.
Yep.
Sorry, what was your question?
That is a good point.
I just, in general, like, what are your, I mean, we can go maybe track for track and spend a little bit of time on each song and see what we kind of remember on that. And then, but just in general, do you have any feelings to get out before we get started?
I have a bunch, but one thing that I did want to mention is we recorded this record in July of 2009 at the Berwick. And so where we recorded it, Jason at the time was living upstairs, and I think that the record has been named Mother of Millions since that time, because Jason had a Mother of Millions plant growing. And it just, I think all three of us were kind of in weird spots in our lives, so the Mother of Millions plant had this whole sort of death and rebirth, because they're sort of virulent, and they grow these little nodules on their sort of like the spine of their leaves, and they just grow like crazy. So the name had been in place for a long time, and then our friend Wendy in the Netherlands did this awesome artwork, which I definitely wanted to mention. It's kind of hard to see it without any like glare or shadow on it, but she did 2 paintings of the Mother of Millions plant, and yeah, I love the way that came out. So
the plant was actually belonged to my roommate at the time, Keita Austin. I would say about this this record just right off initially that the way when you're playing in a band and releasing material, the way you're supposed to do that is you're supposed to write the music and then record the music and then release the music and then go on tour selling the record or CD or whatever. That's the accepted order. And we as a band always had trouble getting that order straight. So we actually toured all of this material a lot before we ever made it into the studio to set it down. And to me, it was just part of who we were at the time, that we were just kind of bursting with creative energy all the time, and just coming up with new material constantly. And it made it very difficult to kind of like maintain that order of operations, because we just had musically new things to say, newer than we could keep up on with our release schedule.
Well, that's an interesting item to me on this record, because one interesting thing I think is this is really only our second full-length record of composed songs, because Patterns, while being an LP length, was actually distinct EPs that we mashed together of stuff we were working on at the time, because we did one record that was, I think, 5 or 6 songs, and then we had a CDR that had some songs in common and then some extra ones, and then we recorded 2 other songs and added those, and then we called that Pattern. So that, in theory, is kind of a compilation. So the only real like full length of composed songs we did would be Gong Lake prior to this. But what I think is interesting about this is we developed the songs and we kind of, like you said, we've gotten pretty adept at making a set that had like almost kind of a flow to it, where songs would be interlinked by maybe sometimes improvised parts that we, you know, have a hint at what we would do. And we wrote this record that way. We wrote this record as a set, and the songs are actually in the order that we wrote them and in the order that we did our set, except for the last song, which we didn't, you know, that we kind of accidentally wrote while we were practicing. But the rest of the songs, that's how we played our set, was in that order, and that's how we wrote the songs. So I always thought that was kind of a distinguishing feature of this.
Yeah. This, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, this batch material was, you know, it was a lot different. To me, it felt a lot different to me when we were making it, because, you know, all three of us really got rid of our former setups, and we, you know, tried a bunch of new materials, or like, I mean, even, you know, I set up my drums differently in order to play different, and you know, just to force myself to get out of some habits, I guess. So I really think like the material on this record is like, sounds kind of goofy, but it's just like, we were just really free when we were writing it, you know, like it just seems totally like its own thing. You know, and maybe that's part of the reason, is that we kind of always viewed it as a set, except for the last song. But I don't know, it kind of all became part, like, you know, part of something in my head. Did we ever play the last song live? I don't think we did, right?
No.
Yeah.
We one thing that I thought of just from my perspective, just playing on this, was the very first song and the very last song I play prepared guitar on. And on the first one, I play on the percussive side beyond the bridge that I created by preparing it. And then on the final song, I play in front of it, which has a more kind of almost subdued, kind of almost like a bowed instrument kind of sound. And on both of those songs, Dan, you play percussion on my guitar on the first and last song as well.
Oh,
so yeah. It's just kind of just an odd thing that I always remember.
Yeah.
And then one other kind of oriented thing that I just wanted to mention that we employed that I thought was pretty fun was, we tinkered around. I think I messed around at some home recordings and found out that if you amplify, you know, we ran the room mics into amplifiers and then mic'd those amplifiers. And because of that, you can kind of actually hear the overtones. And I think in particular, some of the overtones on Jason's guitar come through as this, you know, another instrument to kind of go along with it. So the effects of, you know, of us playing in a room, you can actually hear, which normally you'd have to experience live to get that phenomenon.
I just had a funny memory of when we were actually recording it. I think Kevin was maybe micing up Jason's amp, and you and I were like sitting in the room, and we just looked at each other. Like, you were like, that sounds like a fireplace. Like, I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, it does. It sounds like a raging fireplace.
I wanted to mention one other thing about kind of the way Neptune evolved over the years, and it relates to an observation that you made, Mark, early on, or many years ago, which was that the audience seemed to really enjoy watching us and trying to figure out who was making what sound.
Yeah.
Because it's very confusing. And I think we moved further and further in that direction, in sort of an intermingling of roles, which is to say we were all doing a lot of different things, and any one of us could be occupying any part of the sound spectrum at any given point. So it wasn't like one of us was sequestered in the bass frequency range, because we didn't have a bass player per se. Like, we were all occupying different sonic areas all the time, and listening to one another and finding the space quite fluidly where we could fill in the sound. And to me, that's like a really interesting way to think about composing, to think about musicianship and improvisation and listening and playing with one another, to not get stuck in one little spot and then have to defend your territory from others, to everyone share as a band. I mean, to me, it reflects a kind of a utopian political sentiment.
Well, yeah, and we'll get there later on. Like the very last song, we actually, you and I, rarely we're in the same frequency range. We kind of just intuitively kind of play find our parts within, but we do this very clashing, overtone heavy double bass element on the final song. It's one of my favorite moments because it really, like, in the room, it sounded insane. It was painful to play, and I loved it. I did want to say too, like, so we performed the set of these songs, I think 3 times in Boston and then in Europe. I don't think we did it anywhere else. And the first time we played this song, this set, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was a house show at a place called Gay Gardens. I think that was the first time we played this stuff. Yeah, and it was pretty full. There's a lot of people in this like confined space, and to the extent where when we were bringing our gear, we had to kind of cut through people to get to where we would perform. And I remember there being one by the time we played. I forget who else played that show, but by the time we played, there was one. Who was it?
Prince Rama.
Oh, right, yeah, they were great.
Awesome.
Yeah, there was one light bulb hanging, I remember, being the only illumination in there. And like, once we hit the loud part of our first song, some kid had a cast on his arm and it just hit the light, shattered it, and we were playing in the dark from then on out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I was gonna say that. I remember it being very dark. I don't know. I remember there being like, I think Prince Rama brought a smoke machine because I remember.
Oh, did they?
This feels wrong. It was so claustrophobic, and yeah, that was the first. That was definitely the first time we played that out, and I do remember that show. Like I always thought playing this material was like so exciting. And I remember it being like really exciting, but very dark. And I had like, because my setup was so new, I was just like, I have no idea what's going to happen. But that ended up being a really fun show.
Yeah. So should we go into like kind of track for track and see how that goes?
I'm down with that. Yeah.
Do you want to, before I even play any of it? I mean, we can jump around, play snippets, or but if you have anything to say on the first song, I'm going to hit screen share now and go to this. Sorry, I don't have the artwork up. So do you want me? Should I just start playing the first song, or? Yeah. Okay. Oops, that's not it. want to say anything at this point about
Uh,
that?
you, you guys are right. My guitar does sound like a fireplace.
Yeah, I think that might have been the song that might have been like just like getting sounds or whatever. And yeah, there's like one
After, I mean, there's a part.
place and one like mass of burning wires on the other side.
There's a part coming up where it sounds like a fireplace that's on fire. that comes a little later on. But yeah, I remember one time we played a show and somebody would come along who's like, I didn't hear a single note in any of your set. And I thought we were kind of melodic at that point in the band because that was a long time ago. And I sincerely, there's no notes I can think of in this song at all.
I don't think so. Yeah. Maybe the weird cowbell in the beginning, but
Yeah.
that I always enjoyed starting that song off like when we played live, just from both of us hitting your bass guitar and the you hitting the bell.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and the bell's coming through my pickups, and so I would just actually strike it right in front of the pickup, and it came through nicely.
That song was always it was crazy because I think we would obviously start out with that song, and drumming wise it's like running a marathon for me. And I remember we'd play it and like thank God there was no drums on the next song because a lot of breath, and I'd often have like dinosaur arms. I'd like
Well, I think there's one kind of secret that we would do when we would play, right? Is we would often, when we play a set, for me personally, because I play such heavy instruments, we'd always play like kind of a loud, hefty song and then kind of change it up to where we're kind of, I don't know. I mean, part of it was for effect, right? To make it enjoyable, so you're not just getting hit with a barrage of stuff. But at the same time, there were some practical elements where I'm going to put this huge guitar down now, and we're going to, do something maybe a little quieter or on a different instrument.
Watch Mark have a spinal reconstructive surgery.
But yeah, Dan, do you want to talk at all about you're the one who came up with the lyrics on this song. Do you want to talk about that at all, or?
Yeah, sure. The lyrics are basically about a person who I and this person's parents were just real shitty, racist, suburban people. So I was at their house and we were having dinner, and it's just like every other sentence they would say, it was just like so cringeworthy. And I don't know, it was like, I mean, this was even like, what, I don't know, what did we say, 12 years ago, 13 years ago? So I was just really kind of like blindsided how open they were with their fear of anybody that wasn't as pale as they were. So so that's that.
I mean, we probably don't want to play the songs in full, right? I just wanted to. That one feels like there's such an arc to it. I mean, actually, all the songs have kind of an arc, and they're all long. So right. I don't know if maybe at some point we want to show a certain sector of a song, or if we just start playing snippets and just see what we remember.
Edit this out. We can edit this, right? Somehow.
You can
if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if it's worth playing the very end of this song just so we can see what happens next, which is kind of a rare moment for us, like of using. I mean, we don't. One interesting thing about this record was this was when we started appropriating things, right? So Jason, you would appropriate in real time with radios, and we did that a lot later on too. But this is, to my knowledge, the first time someone else's song has appeared on one of our records.
Are you talking about Colburn Bells or?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really that was another fun song. I feel like a lot of this record was there were a lot of ideas that I really liked. Like it seems like we would, base a lot of these songs around like specific ideas like the radios or whatever. And so yeah, Mark, you playing the tape machine. Uh what kind of tape machine was that? A Tascam or something?
It's a Sharp one, and it was used for education. So it has 8 outputs on it that are all mono, just meant for headphones in a class.
Right, right.
But I would use those outputs. Very convenient because they're the same kind of instrument outputs that
Right.
we all use. But yeah, I found this tape. I was in error. I was thinking I found that cassette when I was doing a DJ thing. It was actually, we played a show. It was either Ben Sisto's final show in Boston, and we played with Night Rally and Big Bear, or it was when we played a New Year's Eve at the Milky Way with, was it Major Stars? What's that?
Was it These Are Powers?
Yeah, and Major Stars. Either way, at the Milky Way, I found this cassette that said Colburn mix on it, and just incorporated it into our show. This isn't the song that I used here was not the one that I used when we play live. I kind of found this newer song that I thought the beat was a little more driving, and I was able to kind of in real time cut up the beat and make more beats with it. So because it was a lot more punchy than the other song I was using. So we never used this one when we played live. It's one that I just kind of changed up when we went in to record.
You never. That's interesting. But you did use that cassette when we played live. Colburn.
I did, yeah, but just a different song, that America song.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I had totally transposed the recording into my memory, but I remember it as the recording now.
Yeah. And then yeah, and I thought that was a fun thing to do. It's something we've never kind of done, but like, we played this very intense song that we just played part of, and then immediately when we stopped, I would go to this, and it would be like this happy, punchy, like kind of disco-y song, which seemed a little out of character. And I don't know if you remember this, but when we played at the end of our set, I would just turn on a random tape. I think I had like an ABBA tape that we would play just at the end of our.
I remember it was when we played a show in Brussels, and you just you plugged in the or you had the cassette player plugged in, and I think you just played that whole Colburn mix that he
made. Yeah, and I think people danced, right?
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, they loved it. I think they liked that better than our set. So
yeah, probably.
that was yeah. So but I think that was funny how that came about, because I always thought that idea was really cool. I really loved that song, and it's just funny that you would happen to find this tape that said Colburn mix, and then I don't know how I pieced together, but I pieced together like I knew the person who actually made that mix, which was Joseph Colburn. And I don't know, that was weird. That was kind of like a I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of moment is, but I was like, oh wow.
It's funny too. Is this the second time that a Neptune song references an actual person in the title? Because there's that song Carson from many years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so.
Well, so this song is interesting too, because I mean, it's loose. I mean, we knew kind of, it had an arc to it. And we knew how to follow each other, but it was a little different every time we played it. But we all play lamellophones on this, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there's an appearance of birds, some bells some jingle bells that we had recorded and dropped pitched it down to like just its death rattle sound.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this song.
Yeah.
I mean, should I just play it or?
Okay, let's hear a little. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
That has another 3.5 minutes to go. So,
I kind of just had a little memory there from when we were playing that material. I really like overall, I love this set because it felt like from each song, those two more so than some other combinations, but it just felt like, you know, it was two completely different bands. I really, you know, like it really, after like, you know, because For Fear of Knowing is so sort of bombastic and brutal. And then this, I mean, I don't know, it might not sound pretty to us, you know, other people, but that the end part, I think is just beautiful. One other thing I did want to mention is for all the lamellophones we were playing, Jason built the one he was playing and the one I played, and then Mark, you built yours. But my lamellophone, which was like the bass lamellophone, was made where the keys, if you will, were made out of bandsaw blades, right, Jason?
Hacksaw blades, yeah.
And then Mark's was made out of the metal from hanging files, right? And like some other weird stuff that you found. And then Jason, yours were street sweeper bristles.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And we should acknowledge Kanono #1 for being an inspiration to using electric lamellophones for sure. They're an amazing band.
Oh, definitely. One thing that I want to mention also about this record was this was I mean, I played drums a lot, but I think the three records I did with Neptune was more, I was, moving away from drums a little bit, and I found that to be incredibly exciting. So yeah, lamellophones and whatever other oscillator gadgets definitely were fun. Took a while to figure it out, but it was fun.
As we were listening back just now to Culver and Bells, I was having, I think, the audience experience that I was describing earlier of just being like, wait, which instrument am I? Which one? What was I playing?
It's funny. I had the same thing because I rarely hear this stuff on headphones, and I didn't realize the birds started like out of the gate. Like I just now was like, oh, there's the birds. 12 years later or whatever. So one quick thing too that I think we should mention is, so this was recorded by Kevin Micah, who we've worked with a ton, who on and off has played in the band. We really wanted this to be an aggressive noise, like very distorted recording, and I think we pulled it off in a way to where it is that, but also isn't lacking like kind of body and power. So he was very helpful with that. And then we mixed it with Seth Manchester at Machines with Magnets, who was very good at helping us sculpt like what we were doing. So their hands, and Scott Craig's, who mastered it, have been very valuable in shaping the overall sound of it, which I don't, who knows, maybe it's not, maybe they don't want to be associated with it in the end. I don't know.
It's funny because I remember when we were starting to master it, when we were, I think we were talking to Scott Craig's, and we were like, no, this record, we really wanted it to sound brutal. And Scott was like, no, it sounds good, but brutal. Yeah, it does. So I think, everyone was very patient with us, especially Scott, because we did like 6 passes of the mastering, and we're trying all kinds of like weird stuff and whatnot. But Kevin was always really patient with us, and Seth was as well. Seth recorded like some vocal parts, and did we do any instrument overdubs there? I think just vocals, maybe.
Yeah, we just did vocals. Yeah.
No, but it was like the one thing I can say about this record for me personally is I don't think I've ever I've never worked on a record so much. And we did, when we recorded this, it was only a couple months later that I left Boston and moved to the desert for a couple of years. But still, I was constantly thinking about it. And then 2 years later, I moved back, and then I would get together with Kevin and we would work on it more, and, do percussion overdubs and vocal overdubs. So I want to say that I'm incredibly happy that it's finally coming out, because I think it's my favorite record I ever worked on or been a part of. So thanks, everyone.
Hooray.
I mean it, though. It's true.
I think this would be a good place to mention that there is that, though you continued working on it after your return from Phoenix, there is that gap of many years where it essentially sat on a hard drive or something. And that before we finally made it into Machines with Magnets to sit down, all of us together, and work on mixing it. And I think Kevin is owed some sort of award for managing to hang on to those files for all that duration of time, and then to sort them out and make sense of them later on. That's great. Because you took a break from music at that time, Dan, I'll mention here that's part of the reason I think that it just kind of moved to the back burner as it was, because it was clear that we weren't going to be playing this material anytime soon, or touring on it. So there became no urgency to getting the mix done. But I'm thrilled that we returned to it and have finished up the recording, because it was well worth the effort.
Yeah, I think so. It's always been some of my favorite stuff, not only that I did with Neptune, but just in, just period in general. So, and the weird thing is, you know, I'll speak for myself here, not the other members, but the time that this was recorded was a really rough and dark time in my life. And when I moved out of Boston, like I really needed to get away. So there was, you know, there was some time when I just, you know, didn't really think about it that much. But yeah, I'm glad that we did really make it a point to get it done, or at least get it down, get it recorded before I left. Because at that time I didn't know where I was going to end up, you know. But yeah, we were all we were all going through some stuff back in those days. I don't know if any of you remember.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot accomplished, and it's remarkable given how unstable our living conditions and personal lives were at that time, and we really endured a lot of I don't know what the discomfort and but just in enduring the psychological toll of that continued instability, from constantly prioritizing touring and music, and having that be you know, having it be a struggle to make our rent every month. That was a lot for all of us.
Yeah.
We know, I was thinking about when, you know, us talking about this, it occurred to me, so this lineup, us three, is definitely the most productive lineup of Neptune. I mean, this is, you know, what's interesting is I think for probably us more than anyone, it feels like the longest running lineup of the band, but it actually isn't. I mean, it was not even 4 years that it was the three of us. So it was 2005 to 2009, but obviously, you know, Dan, it was until July 2009. And we managed to cram in a lot, and even recording wise, I was trying to count in my head, it's somewhere around 17 plus releases came from us in those
3.5 years,
3/4 or whatever years. Yeah. So, you know, I think that does state how much time we kind of were committing to the band by the time we did this.
Yeah.
But okay, so the next song is called Seeds of the Golden Fruit. This is this the longest? This isn't the longest song, but it's one of the longest. It's fairly repetitive. So I don't know how much you guys want to play of it. You know, there's distinct sections to it, and what I like about this song, the recording, was in the end, those distinct sections every time they come in are a little bit louder than, you know, in the mixing and mastering process than the section previous to it. So the song just gets louder and more compressed and a little bit more frenetic sounding as it goes. But how much of it do you want to play?
Maybe we can skip around a bit, like play it and then skip to like near the middle, then the end, I guess.
Okay.
Good idea.
Go ground way down in the dark red dirt. Go ground way down in the heart of dirt. Go ground way down in the dark red dirt. Go ground way down in the deep underground. Go ground way down in the dark red dirt. Go ground way down in the heart of dirt. Go ground way down underground. Go ground way down underground. Go ground way down in the dark red dirt. Go ground way go ground. Go ground way down in the dark and dirt. Go ground way down in the heart of dirt. Go ground way down in the dark and dirt. Go ground way down in the deep underground. The sound of gold is the sound of red. Go ground way down in the deep and dirt. The sound of earth and the sound of wood. Stay out the box with a get rich man. Go ground way down in the rich dark dirt. Go ground way down in the rock. Go ground, dig down for the golden world. Go ground, dig down in the rockin' dirt. Swimming through with the golden seas. Get rich man with the grubby teeth. Get go ground with the meeting leaves. Get go ground with the meeting leaves. Go ground way down in the dark and dirt. Go ground underground in the heart of dirt. Go ground way down in the dark and ground. Go ground way down in the dark underground. Go ground through the seas on a golden bridge.
Should we jump ahead to some other sections? Do you have anything to say about this?
I have a couple things to say about this. This was fun recording this because this was, I guess I did the vocals maybe 3 years after we recorded this record. And I remember like doing a lot of takes because you can't really hear it in the beginning, but I just did this high pitch like woo in the background. And playing that was also really fun, but I used to get lightheaded and think I was going to pass out just from like singing. And I don't really hit any snare. I was just like banging cymbals for like 8 minutes and doing this like kind of high pitch wail. That was a lot of fun. But I remember also playing at Gay Gardens the first time we played that out. I was like, if I make it through the song without passing out, that'll be cool. So luckily I did.
That my vocals at the beginning, I'm very fond of that recording because it's got kind of one of the most analog effects ever. It sounds like a kind of like a little tremolo on my voice, but I'm actually just singing gold crown way down, weighted, and punching myself in the chest at the same time. Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, you can hear that very well.
Yeah, I totally.
Yeah, that's
great.
That's one of my favorite elements too.
Yeah, I like overall. I really love the way that song came out. And if we do fast forward to the end,
sure.
That what I really liked is in the end, I was just playing the metal floor tom that was made out of an old oil drum, and Jason wired a guitar, pickup jack into it, and then Mark, you processed that sound, and I don't remember quite how you were doing it, but I really like
that. Makes two of us.
I just love how blown out and nasty it sounds at the very end.
Yeah, the instrumentation. Go ahead, Jason.
I think on this song, I pretty much just play one chord, aside from a couple of the in the center section. There's some little harmonics, but pretty much there's just one chord. And as I recall, the chord is it's me just hitting the same note on different strings in some way. And I was just sort of remembering listening back to it at maybe when we went to mix finally, and remarking that I was really getting like pretty far into the territory of minimalism at this point. And Mark, you saying, yeah, that's just where you were at.
It's true. I mean, you more than anyone. I mean, the restraint. let's say restraint of what you do throughout this album. The first song, you're just going. I mean, really, the main colors in the first song that you change is different levels of distortion and fuzz, like which I love. Throughout that song, it's really, in some instances it's really subtle, and then some it's just like ridiculous. But yeah, this one is I always enjoyed kind of cramming you know, we had that old Ampeg amp. I used to kind of like cramming 2 signals into it and letting them fight it out. And that's kind of what I'm doing in this song. I do kind of the low end, bassy kind of low end sound, and then this percussive sound, which is some pink noise I recorded on a cassette, and they're kind of just fighting with each other. So like the pink noise will overwhelm the low end, and then it kind of makes it like, it gives it kind of a sweep to it. So it's like, just kind of reacting to it. And the low end I'm creating by just with mixer feedback. And then by the end of the song, I'm dropping all that out and just kind of manipulating Dan's drum sounds. And then Jason, you go to, I think, 2 radios at the end of the song. One that's a little more percussive and one that's a little more chaotic. We can get to that section here.
We should have done another few passages of
you know what I noticed? We were all kind of chuckling as it got even shittier sounding.
I also just had another memory about that song when we were composing that stuff, we were still at 35 Wyman Street at the.
Oh, I was going to ask that. Yeah.
And so I remember we were playing in the space next to us was Battle House, and Doug came out, or like I think we all just like went out or whatever to like take a break, and he was like, "What the hell is that sound? It sounds like a submarine." How are you getting that sound? The weird submarine or the whale sound, whatever it is. Mark?
Me?
Yeah, because that's your sound, isn't it? The brrr. It just it has like this underwater submarine sound.
I can't remember. I was doing some like when your beat would stop, there would be this little space for me to like turn down the modulation on one of my pedals, and it kind of gives this like kind of sweeping sound. But also Jason's got, you know, the main kind of loudest percussive electronic sound there is Jason turning on a radio.
Yep.
And I think at one point we overdubbed more radio at the end of that.
Yeah, that's good. I have to mention, I feel like that song must have been hell for Kevin to record, just because it's all 16th bass drum notes. That's my little
yeah. Jason.
It's funny that it's the listening back to this is making us laugh now, because that was sort of like laughter is like an element of how we went about writing and composing. You know, somebody would do something in rehearsal, and it would be just such a ridiculous kind of over the top sound that would make us all laugh, and then that would be, we'd know we were on to something, and we'd keep pushing it in that direction. But it was sort of like laughter is like a tool or a gauge or a compass, a guide that we used.
Yeah, there were many times when I, like, just completely bungled a drum line, and one of you would be like, "Oh, yeah, do that again." And I'd be like, I don't know what I just did. A lot of time learning how to redo mistakes.
Yeah. Jason, do you want to say anything about, I mean, I don't know if we want to go too deep into lyrical stuff, but if,
That's lyrically, it's kind of like it's like a work of horror fiction. It's imagining a grave robber who's exhuming a decayed body to steal the golden crowns of someone's teeth, and it's, yeah, it's kind of dark and messy, and then also, I mean, it's like playing with this idea of repetition and minimalism. The lyrics repeat a lot, but in like slightly reconfigured order or with slight variation.
Now, if I remember correctly, did something was up with the vocals here when we originally recorded it, and did we re-record this with Seth? Was this?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was either this or Laden Curses, where
maybe it's that one. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, something. I don't know if Jason was happy with the vocal sound or something, but or maybe or maybe just had to record a second verse. So maybe
I seem to recall Leaden Curses recording with Seth.
Yeah.
I know there was something, a Gentleman Call, or no, not Gentleman
we didn't.
Call.
Yeah, no, definitely, we didn't have any lyrics on that one
Yeah,
originally.
yeah.
So,
yeah, I thought we had lyrics on that when we played out Gentleman Caller.
Yeah, they were kind of like placeholder lyrics, and I had never felt like I had finished composing the lyrics for Gentleman Caller, and so I finished before we finished mixing and recorded. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. But do we want to say anything else about this particular one?
Total ripper.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go to the next one, which is a little more atmospheric. Like, that's kind of the way we did this set of songs. Like, an aggressive song was usually followed by something a little less aggressive. So should I just play just part of this one?
Yeah.
Since we're okay.
I love that one.
So this is in, for the most part, this is all just vocals by the three of us.
Yeah. So Jason was playing the radio. Was that like a static oscillator or something? You remember? Jason?
I think I'm just doing it by. I think it's just one of these, and I think I'm just kind of like fooling with the volume control and the tuning.
One of my favorite parts of the whole record is when your sounds really poke out. And I remember actually when we were recording this, I think maybe we did like 2 days in July or whatever. And after one of the days, I remember like waking up the next morning and I had those sounds in my head and I couldn't remember what song that we actually did them on. But I really like that song a lot. It's, I don't know, it is weird. I actually thought we all did just vocals, but no, I forgot you were doing the static oscillator. So there are actually lyrics to that song that I sing, but you can't make them out because it's just kind of like my voice was just generating a bunch of pile of crap to sound like nothing. And then Mark, you have that really like low sound. What was that? Just like an octave shifter?
I can't remember. Yeah, it was some kind of pitch shifter, I think. I can't remember what else I added to it at this point. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool to, in the set, again, we just finished a pretty aggressive song, and then all were kind of standing up and doing vocals together, which was kind of, yeah. I think maybe visually, like, I think one thing it's funny because like we did a lot of slight performance art kind of nods without really ever talking about it. There were instances throughout our sets over the years where we would have select movements that we would do that kind of worked, and maybe we did talk about it at some point, like the song on Patterns, the Late Worm in particular had a lot of kind of almost choreography to it, but I feel like it was almost accidental. So I like, I think one thing we're always pretty good at is contrasts, and I think like contrasting the aggressive song before it that's played in a very kind of almost rock manner, and then this, which is just whatever you want to call it.
I don't know. This is another one where when we were playing live, it was great to actually have a few minutes to breathe and like catch your breath and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that would have been pretty. I don't know if it was fun for anyone to watch, but I think it would be.
Yeah.
So.
I'll just chime in here to say that I don't really remember what was happening. I have to kind of remember that thing with the radio, and I don't know what happens after that.
You get points on this, Jason, because we thought you were going to say that much earlier.
Oh, I love it. All right. So do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
Anything else to say?
Well, this one's the one where this is one where for many years it had no vocals to it. And I got to say, I mean, vocally, this is one of my favorite songs of ours, period, Jason. It's one of the more melodic ones. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I didn't remember what we were going to do with this song. I think we might have talked about even keeping it an instrumental just because we didn't have anything. And then, during our mixing, we were just like, oh, let's hook up the mic. And then you do this really great song about these moths, which I think maybe you should talk a little bit about, because I think it's pretty interesting. But maybe we do it before or after we play the song. You tell me.
Yeah, I guess I had been reading about moths for some reason, and I found the life cycle really interesting because they I don't know if it's true for all moths are just this species I was reading about, but they don't, the moths don't even have a mouth, because they consume all of the food that they're going to consume for their lives while they are a caterpillar, and then they go into their cocoon and they come out as a moth, and their whole point is to mate and reproduce at that point. But so they don't even drink water or eat or anything. And somebody's knocking on my door. Let's go ahead and listen.
Police.
That would be
I
awesome.
know.
I'm busy.
I remember what you did on that song.
On my Zoom call. I'm busy.
Jason's gonna have to pay a fine. Oh shit.
Well, that's good. People can see the guitars now. I don't think well, one of those appeared on this record.
Oh yeah. Was that the lyric police?
Okay, so should we play this now?
Sure.
And I think we should mention, like, if anybody is watching or listening to this, it's not your speakers. This is what this stuff sounds like. It's a little more distorted than you. Yeah, it's supposed to sound this way.
that that last part there, that was, I remember trying to figure that out at rehearsal, and I don't know if you guys recall this, but I could never make the drums line up with what you guys were playing. Do you guys remember this at all? And it took me forever to figure it out, but like, I don't know, you guys, whatever time signature you were playing in, I was playing in something completely different. And then or like, I think you guys, what you guys were playing was like 5 measures to mine was something like 17 and a quarter. That was fun. I agree with Mark. I love the vocals on that song, but I also really love the lyrics. It's definitely has the signature Sanford creepiness to it.
There was a line in there about a rhythmic perfume, which, you know, again, it's still about the moth. I'm remembering now there's a thing that happens with the female moth sets up these like waves of pheromones that are attracting the male moth to come to her. And I thought that was a really interesting that idea that like a chemical odor could come in a wave pattern like that, as if it were a sound wave or something, that there is this relationship between smelling and hearing.
We should have done like a scratch and sniff version of this record.
Probably.
No, and another thing that I wanted to say about this, it was this is one of those songs where there's a lot of sounds going on, and so I remember, so I would play drums, but then I would play that oscillator with my foot. And Jason, you were playing, you made a violin.
Yeah.
For this, which was, I totally forgot until we were looking at photographs recently that it was a different violin than the early one you made. What was that made out of?
It just was like a little piece of pipe in a pickup, and it had a little bicycle cog as a headstock. But it was the thing about it was that it was about the size of a violin or a viola, but it was just two strings, and it was strung with 2 electric bass guitar strings. So it's got that real low, rubbery sound that's kind of creating the bass bed through much of this song.
And this is the first song on this record where Mark plays the telephone, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. You've found that phone. It was the old style push phone, and you'd hacked it to get the sound signal out, right?
Yeah, I looked up the circuit diagram to find out just where the power comes from. It's typically about 12 volts that run it, so I just put a 9-volt in that spot. And I've always wanted to do something with that sound, not just the traditional push button sound, but when I was a kid, most of the sound I'm using here is when you're pushing multiple keys at once and then releasing one, which it's not reductive. It actually adds more sound once you release one. So it's something I used to do when I was a kid. I would pick up the phone, wait for it to go dead, and then just kind of mash the keys and just kind of try and play music with it. So it really does come from, my part on the song comes from a kind of deep childhood spot. So it was fun to actually do it on a song for once.
Yeah.
And I will say, Jason, this is another key minimalist work for you in terms of instrumentation.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So was it just the violin you're playing on that, Jason?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's it.
Yeah. But there are some dynamics with it, kind of like we were talking about with other songs, where you hit like a pedal and it lifts up and changes, changes its texture here and there too, and is boosted in some parts. Because there's that little exchange that happens between the 3 of us after kind of the main melodic part, that does even confuse me who's doing what. But I love toward the end of it where you play a little bit higher on the violin on that one. Probably the second of 2 notes you play on that song, and you just kind of kick it up really high. I could just really hear it in my left earphone here. It's just, I really like that effect.
I was just remembering that when we first wrote this song, we called it Rave, the rave song.
Yeah.
I think we were trying to, make a rave happen in our practice space.
Well, I think too, you begin the song with kind of a classic kind of rave rhythm. You're going like that. Okay, so live, what we did here is we would extend kind of these electronic tones between you and I, Dan. You would do something with electronic, like with an oscillator, and I really delayed pretty heavily the phone sounds. And we would go into this next song, which is can we say it's our dance song?
I want to suggest we pause here. I need to take a brief break, and I want to pause the recording and make sure that it's going to hard drive correctly and everything, and then we'll pick up. Can we just take 5 minutes here?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I need to raise you.
Okay.
Do you need us to get off of Zoom or anything?
No. Well, just leave it open. It's fine.
Okay.
Welcome back.
So nice to be back. All right. So before the break, we were discussing Gentleman Caller. I think, did we touch on all the points that we wanted to there?
I think so, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So next one is Chandelier of Leaf, which we forever called the disco song, the rave song, and then the disco song. This is another one of my favorites. This was really, really fun to play live. So I don't know. What does anybody else have to say about this song?
You go to town on that drum on this one.
Yeah. So the 6-inch rototom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of use out of that.
You know, we had kind of for years we had joked around that we should do like a disco record or some sort of dance record, and I guess in a way this is the closest we ever got. This record.
Yeah. So shall I play it or okay? Let's just do that.
It's not playing correctly.
Yeah, it's really quiet.
You gotta make sure you're optimized for sharing sound.
Yeah, sorry, forgot we had started from scratch. Let's do that again. Share sound. Okay. Let me know if you can hear this.
jam. I had a little realization there that I was really inspired by, as you know, as a teenager, by Ministry's live video of "In Case You Didn't Feel Like Showing Up," and specifically, I think it's Bill Riflin. Is that how you pronounce that guy's name?
I think so. Yeah.
Riflin. He would just because Martin Atkins would like do all this really tom heavy stuff, and Bill Riflin would just do this really cool thing where he would hit the snare with both of his hands, and that's definitely I learned that trick by watching him. And another thing is, I can't believe you guys didn't take my snare drum away from me, because I always like to tune my snare drum really high, but this past year when we were listening to when like Scott was mastering it, there were parts where the snare drum was just like, it was so piercing that I was like,
Yeah, this one's a fun one. And the thing about us just playing kind of like the earlier part of songs, a lot happens later on in a lot of these songs that we're not really illustrating, but this one even comes complete with like a percussion breakdown.
Yeah. Recording that was really fun. I remember getting aggravated with you and I. I can't remember specifically what, but
so one thing for me on this one is I'm actually doing a lot of work to do what I'm doing in the main parts, but you actually can't hear it. If you listen really close, you can, but I'm playing pretty quickly on a telephone and somehow holding it up, but it just, in my mind, it sounded different than how it actually came out. So I'm not sure what it sounds like to you guys, but I'm playing like 16ths on this thing. And it just goes like, I'm like sweating trying to get it right. So
I think we all have those moments on this record.
I'm seriously going through, I'm hitting 4 different keys, but it sounds like 2. So I
think that's characteristic of many of our efforts across many albums. Is just like a lot of work to very little end. That's right in character with the band. This track was making me remember that we used to talk a lot about kind of the editorial process, and just I mean, it sounds like everybody's kind of playing in a lot, but a lot for much of the time in that song and in all of these songs. But we actually spend a lot of time thinking about like what to layer out when to, and it's can be a hard thing to do, to just like drop out when you're playing in a rock 3-piece. It's not always easy to just think, the best thing for me to do right now would be nothing. But we do that once in a while.
There's a lot of nuanced stuff in this song, even as it progresses, of that nature. Yeah, where we, in particular, the guitar stuff is really neat in this song, but there's a lot of really great subtle drum movements in here too that I think on like a couple different, on a couple listens kind of make themselves clear, but might not be there right away on a first listen.
I really loved when we were like writing music so often, we would come up with songs, and then it always seems like it would get to this one point and then would start to be really reductive and like take pieces away. And that was really fun. It is like, sometimes it is really challenging to, just to like completely drop out. But that was, that's actually something I learned in my tenure in Neptune. Was, it definitely taught me to be more conscious of like what everybody else is doing, and yeah, I actually got a lot out of that. And I think I still like with approach songwriting that way now is, you know, kind of make a mess and then sort of clean it up before you're about done. I did have one other memory, and I can't tell if it's this song or if it was a song off of Gong Lake we were writing, but I like when I was hearing, because Jason, you're doing that main bass line in the beginning.
Yeah.
Remember we were writing a song and you kind of got frustrated and you were like, oh, my playing sounds like a Neanderthal. And Mark was like, oh, that's awesome. No, I think actually maybe it was on the last song. It was one of these ones, but that was pretty funny. And then I'll mention a little bit. Chandelier of Leaves is another kind of word for the Mother of Millions plant. So that's where the title came from, previously known as the disco song.
And we would play this live, but we toyed around for a while with, at some point, maybe having somebody guest on vocals on this, who, but we never got around to it. But
we were gonna ask Broder to maybe do vocals at one point. He was like pretty. I think around the time we recorded it, he was pretty amped on doing that. But then, yeah, again, I like moved away, and we kind of put this on the back burner for a bit. So.
Should we move on to the next one?
Certainly.
Now, there's a lot of fireplace guitar action on this particular song.
This might have been this where we were like sitting near the amp and we were just like, what even is that sound? It is another one. I love the way the vocals came out on this, because like there's definitely different parts, like different vocal parts, and there's that part, like I think it's the last vocal bit where Jason sort of like doubles up his vocals, and it sort of really has this to me, when I listen to it, like it just sort of sounds like really claustrophobic and again kind of creepy. But I really like the title, and I really like the lyrics as well on this one. So
do you want to talk about the lyrics?
The idea of Leaden Curses came from something I learned while we were on tour. We were in Bath, England, and we actually visited the ancient Roman baths, and it was there that I learned about this historical practice, which, as I recall, was during medieval times. If people had wanted to put a hex on an enemy, they would pay a scribe, because most of the people were illiterate at that point. So they would pay a scribe to etch their curse onto a little sheet of lead, which they would then fold up and they'd throw into the fountain, much as we throw like a penny into a fountain to make a wish nowadays. But I thought that was such an interesting idea of throwing a curse into a fountain.
I remember at the end of that tour, you were allowed to drink you were allowed to get a Dixie cup of the actual bath water, right?
Yeah.
Did any of us get that?
Yeah.
Because I remember
it had a strong sulfur flavor. It tasted like you were drinking like rotten egg mineral water. And I remember that the tour guide was shocked that Dan asked for an extra one.
That's pretty good. I liked it.
Yeah. I also remember that after that tour, I got a roll of film developed, and there was a person, and I was looking at the picture, and there's a naked guy wearing just a towel, and I was like, who the hell is this? Who borrowed my camera and was taking pictures of and I eventually realized that I had snapped a photo of one of the mannequins behind glass in the display at the historical bath, the ancient Roman.
I remember dudes and towels.
Okay, well, let's go with that. And actually, if I remember correctly, this song does open up with some ultimate fireplace guitar work.
Yes.
reflection of the discarnate. We make mistakes. We make the same mistakes. In reflections of the unseen, unseen, unseen. We learn our fate.
I mean, there's a lot more happens here, but there's still many minutes left of that one.
I guess I never really noticed too. The lyrics don't come in until like well after the half point of that song.
Yeah.
So one thing I was noticing on that listen, there is like, as like the fireplace is raging, there's like a furnace, and then you're making a sound that sounds like a wounded like electronic like manatee or something. It's like,
Yeah, was that a feedback kind of a? That must have been a feedback.
No, I mean, so my at the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah.
cool sound.
Yeah. My riff, if you will, on this song is to hit the side of the bass really hard and then fret a single note. I do that for 7 minutes. Or no. I think it might be longer. Yeah.
This was always difficult for me to play live because as you guys might remember, I have a tendency of speeding up sometimes in songs, like and I would get really excited before playing this song, and like it would just probably start it off too fast. Like it's even like it was, I remember when we were recording it, I think we like did maybe like 2 takes or something, and I was like, I need a break. But yeah, like I just thought it was like really funny listening back to it, because I recorded some overdubs, like some percussive overdubs on it, and it was just hard to like play along with myself, because I don't know if I'm like switching time, but it was definitely pretty fast.
I think this song speaks to what Jason was talking about in the song previous, where we didn't get there yet in terms of playing the song, but there's a lot of really minuscule changes that don't necessarily happen at the same time, that we take on later on, that are really nuanced and neat on the song. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else on this one?
I don't think so.
We heard a lyrical line where I say something about through the action of the discarnate, which, as far as I know, discarnate is a word that I made up just for this.
Yeah, I think so.
I never heard that before.
Can you think of any other words you made up?
No.
In the past?
No, I can't really. That's the only one that I can think of. Yeah.
So yeah, this was traditionally like, so when we did this set, this was our final song. And, because we were touring in Europe, we would have, we had an encore. And I think with that, we had something that we played kind of instrumental that led up to us playing. I think the Penetrating Gaze was what we would do live then.
That's right.
But typically the set that we played in Boston ended here at this song. And then, now in my memory, we moved into, we left the Jamaica Plain practice space, and we moved into Hoag's practice space in the Sound Museum in Allston to practice for this recording. Because we knew we were going to kind of put the band to rest for a little bit since you were leaving. So I think that might be the decision we made to change. So we borrowed Hoag's space and practiced this set, and then we accidentally wrote this last song.
Yeah. Yeah. This song is, it's funny how it came together. Like it came together, I guess, like rather quickly. And I love like the kraut element of it, how it's so repetitive. And so this was really fun to play when we were like writing it. Because I remember one time Steve, my husband, actually joined us as we were
Oh my God, yeah.
as we were writing this song, and I was like, well, if we're still dating after this, then I'm gonna be amazed. So,
Yeah, because this was early on when you guys were hanging out.
this is like our third date or something.
Yeah, man. Now I remember him being in the room watching us do this.
Oh, it's cool. That was funny. How many we weren't, I think we only were in that space for a couple of weeks, right? We only did a handful of rehearsals there, I think. And I think it was in order to get ready for recording.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hoag.
Yeah, and then anytime you stop playing, you would hear I don't know, somebody covering Led Zeppelin next door or something like.
Oh my God, that place.
We've had it pretty good with the practice spaces we've had.
And Hoag, thanks again also for lending us your van that time, and sorry about the can of spray paint that exploded in the back.
I forget. I had some of my cases still have that paint all over them.
What happened? I wasn't in the band then, was I?
I don't remember when that happened. I just remember it happening.
I think you were. Yeah, we borrowed their van last minute, and I think they had spray paint in the back somehow and in a bag, and we had basically set our instruments on top of it, and it bursted it open, and it was just spraying all around the back of the van. We're just driving, not knowing. It totally painted everything in their van. Yeah, so this last song might be hard to play back. I mean, because the first I don't know, 3 minutes of it are not even the body of the song, and then I mean, this is a 9.5-minute song. So I'm not. Do you want me to? How do you want to hear it back?
Should we just start from the middle?
Okay. And I do want to point. What, Dan?
Oh no, I was gonna say I still think this song could have been 15, 16 minutes, but that's just me. So go ahead.
Maybe it's not too bad. I can start right here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of anything we did, it comes up a lot later in the song, and it probably maybe we won't play it now, but it is that part I mentioned earlier where Jason and I, it actually speaks to a lot of things that we've talked about over the duration, but like Jason and I are playing these two like very contrasting bass parts, but they also use a lot of the same notes. And in some instances, there's a note or two that's like a half step off. So there's just this, it's just this, sounds like absolutely nothing. And
You want to jump ahead to that part? Should we hear it?
And then, well, and then Dan, speaking of nothing, plays absolutely nothing for like the longest you've ever gone in a single song, right?
Yeah.
Sure. If it, let me try and find it.
I love that whole section.
It's funny because like in my head I was like, I'll start it where there's that change where I come into the bass part that kind of plays with Jason's, not realizing that it took like 2 minutes to get to the thing that I was thinking of. There is a change earlier in that song that I recall. Dan, you and I basically do this kind of, we shift together into this completely different thing. And I remember Jason commenting that he needed to just not pay attention to it because it just made no sense what we were doing. So he just chugged ahead with that kind of main line that you hear.
I overall, like, I love the way that song came out. I love that. Like, I feel like, you know, I was in such a weird headspace when we were writing all of this. And I just wanted to sort of like make the songs as punishing as they could be in a lot of ways. And I always felt like, you know, just the like the repetitiveness. You know, it really, that one does to me like get sort of like punishing just in terms of like, you know, it's like a little bit of a, you know, a duration or whatever. And then, you know, when we were mastering it, you had the idea, Mark, to kind of take that part, and it's sort of like it just goes into this like syrupy mass of nothing, which kind of made it even further furtherly unlistenable or whatnot. But that was like, I remember when we were writing it, that was really exciting and really fun to play for me. So it's kind of funny that we never actually played it out. We didn't play it at the Midway, even at the last show I did with Neptune.
No. Again, we accidentally wrote this while we were practicing the rest of the other stuff in the Hoag space. It's funny that you mentioned krautrock too, because like we never talked about this, but my part in this was like, my brain was like, this is going to be like poor man's Noi in what I was playing. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah. I don't know what I was listening to at the time, but like I got a lot of pleasure out of just kind of like playing the same drum part for like overall like maybe 7 minutes. And there's like little changes here and there, but I found that to be really fun.
And it's worth noting that we had Seth employ a lot of kind of dub sounds on your drums throughout this song, that get more and more constant as the song goes on. Yeah.
I really like what he added a lot to, I mean, Scott Craggs and Seth Manchester definitely added a lot to the finished version of this song. And I really like what they both brought to it. But I remember when we were, you know, like it was probably just before we were going to mix it back in like 2016. And that was your idea. You were, you know, said like we should do some dub elements to it. And I don't know, like I think at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But then I loved the way they came out. I thought that came out really well.
It certainly that it's pretty, puts me in a trance-like state. It's pretty hypnotic, that song, which I think happened when we played it, and it happens just in listening back. It certainly, it seems like I could sit and listen to it, but it also seems like it's something, the recorded version of it, it's something I could do other things. It would be a nice song to just like have on and while I was vacuuming the carpet.
Yeah. I remember somebody who will go unnamed. I remember trying to pay him a compliment by telling him that I cleaned my room to his music, and I really meant it. It's like, you know, it was a wonderful motivation, and the look on his face was just terrible. I would love for somebody to say, yeah, you know, I fixed this tricycle to your song. Like, I think that, like, yeah, to have like utility, that, I don't know, it's pretty neat, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I just had a funny vision of like you with an old vacuum and a boom fixed to it. That would be maybe that could be a Neptune record. Let's make.
So should we make is there any like kind of parting comments you want to make? I mean, if anybody's watching this, can you tell people how to get it, Dan?
Sure. So it is it's on my Bandcamp page for the label that I run, which is wronghole.bandcamp.com. And that's WRONGWHOLE. So there are going to be a couple versions of this. We're having the cassette version, which will be available with a zine, which is a lot of pictures that Mark took on that tour, and a bunch of other people who took on the tour when we were, you know, primarily playing this material. So there's that. It's also going to be digital. And then I think by next week, it's also will be on every streaming platform like iTunes and Spotify and whatever. But yeah, if you want the physical object, go to the Bandcamp page.
Yeah, and we discussed doing an LP version of this, and it would have to be 4 sides, and that kind of
Yeah.
made it not something that we could pull off.
Well, I think even before the pandemic started, we really were looking into ways of, trying to actually, have it on vinyl. But, there's not a lot of record labels who wants to put out a record of Burning for the, band that's like not currently touring. So, so yeah, but the pandemic definitely wiped that idea out. So I mean, someday if it does end up on vinyl, I would love that. Possibly.
It's weird too. This is the one record of ours where I'm not a headphones listener, but like I feel like it's the best way to hear this one. I'm not sure why, but there's something about the quality of it. Like there's a lot of subtle stuff. I still, we were talking about this earlier. There's still stuff I noticed that I wasn't aware of, over the past 12 years.
Yeah, same with me. And I very much am a headphone listener. But I do, yeah, I think the closer this is to your ears, the more the more weird stuff you're going to find. And I continually, like, I'll hear like, parts that either you guys played or something that I like never really realized was there. So it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving or taking.
Well, let's hope somebody like assembles a snow cone machine to it. With,
I hope so. That'd be pretty
with headphones on.
Yeah.
Anything else anybody? Jason?
Thanks for putting it out, Dan. Thanks for continuing to work on it, Dan and Mark. This is it's great to have it see a release at last.
Yeah.
And thanks to Kevin and Seth and Scott and Wendy.
Yes. And Johnny Strimish, because he took a lot of the photos that appear on the inside of the cassette. So yeah, I too, I can't say this enough because I have a hard time really talking about it because I don't want to feel like an idiot, but this really is my not only my favorite record I've done with Neptune, but it's like my favorite record I've been a part of. So it did seem at certain points that, it would never really see the light of day. But I'm really, really happy with the end results. And again, thank you to everybody who was involved because they definitely pulled their weight.
Yes, is that somewhere where you'd hit stop, Jason, on the recording? Or
I'll hit stop.
Okay.
Word.